One question that people usually have, especially if they're beginners, is what should I wear? Hiking boots, trail running shoes, light sandals. Well, I've got a lot of experience in this area, and let me show you what I suggest. I like to follow a lot of adventure groups on Facebook, YouTube, hiking, canoeing, backpacking, mountain climbing, the whole bit. I really enjoy that. I've done a lot of it myself, and it's just interesting to me. One question that I see come up over and over again, especially for people that are just now getting into the sport, what kind of a hiking boot should I buy? And should it be a hiking boot or should it be a trail running shoe? Or maybe even a light sandal. It all depends on where you're going, the terrain. It all depends on the temperature. I was fortunate enough years ago to run an outdoor store called Quest Outdoors. It was beautiful. Best gear, Mountain Hardwear, Marmot, Sierra Design, Patagonia. We carried it all. The owner, Don and Barbara, were very, very knowledgeable about the outside world. They actually sent me down to Knoxville, Tennessee for 1 week to go through a boot fitting seminar. This was a great seminar. It was put on by Phil Oren. And Phil Oren was known as one of the best boot fitters in the business. He was a master. He was actually the director of the Fit System by Phil Oren. Now, why this was so important, before that, customers would come into the store and I would fit them with a pair of boots. Once I went to this program, my whole system changed because now I understood how important your feet are when it comes to backpacking and hiking and trail running. The number one reason why people quit on the Appalachian Trail: ankle problems, feet problems. A lot of times it comes down to the fitness. Did they train? Did they prepare? Were their muscles strong enough? A lot of times it comes down to a simple boot. Did they buy the right boot? Did they have the right shoe? Inflammation will set in your ankles, in your toes, around the ball of your feet, and that's what will drive people from the trail. What I learned going through Phil Oren's program was your feet are the number one thing you have to protect on the trail. The big discussion starting back then and now has continued. Do I want to wear a tough, good pair of boots? Should I save my money on other gear, buy a cheap pair of boots? Or should I go with something that doesn't weigh hardly any, like a good trail running shoe? Now these are Brooks and these are actually running shoes, but they're pretty similar to a trail running shoe. Just using them as an example. It's my opinion when it comes to boots, and this is a pretty inexpensive pair of boots, a cheap pair of boots. I would not want to wear these boots out on the trail unless it's the only thing that I could afford at the time. I think these boots ran somewhere around $79 or so. You're making a big mistake. Try to save money and spend your money elsewhere. Your feet are so vitally important for you to get through that trail and feel good at the end of the day. I use them to cut grass and to weed eat, to do chores around the cabin. As far as hitting the trail, no, I would not wear these being out on the trail. A pair of boots is like a good tool. Just like a mechanic has the best tools, just like a painter has the best brushes, you gotta have the best equipment when it comes to something as vital as your feet. These Salomons have Gore-Tex in them, and that makes them 100% waterproof and breathable. They are a tough pair pair of boots. They protect your ankle, they protect your foot from rocks, from any kind of objects that you might hit on the trail. They protect you from a snake if a snake bit low. Now if it's going to bite higher, it's going to get you in the leg, but if not, they're going to protect you from bites. A strong shank in them, which is this area through here, is so important when you're hiking on a trail, especially if you're hiking with a lot of weight in your backpack. Because when you hit a rock, you want to be able to just pivot right over the top of it, keep on going. You take a trail running shoe like this, when you hit that rock, bruise the arch of your foot. And you may not even know it bruised the arch of your foot or the ball of your feet until that evening, until the next day, until several days later. Your feet are starting to hurt worse and worse, and that's exactly what it is. When you take a light pair of shoes like this, you are subjecting your feet to a lot of damage. Now they make some nice trail running shoes, I will admit that. Keen is one. Keen shoes are very tough, and Keen does have a stronger shank right here. The way I look at it, if I'm going out there and I'm going to carry 40 pounds on my back, and I'm going to hike anywhere between 10 and 15 miles, and it's rocky terrain, I want something that is going to protect my feet. On YouTube, you watch videos all the time. People say, oh, my feet get hot. Oh, well, they're too heavy, too cumbersome, they make me clumsy. You know what? A good tool is a good tool. And if you get a properly fit pair of boots and you strap them on correctly, right socks, right sock liner with them, and the whole system is exactly what you needed, this is the protection you need. At the end of the day, that's when you break out your camp shoes, you take your boots, you air them out, you reach in, you grab your insole, you let those dry out. Next day, they are ready to go. You strap them up and you're ready to do another 10 or 15 miles on a rocky trail. Now, if you're just going out for a 1 or 2 mile hike on a nice flat path through the woods, you don't necessarily have to go out and buy a $200 pair of boots. But if you're going to do some backpacking, if you're seriously going to put some miles on and you're going to keep up with the sport year after year, buy you a good, strong pair of boots. And then carry you a very lightweight pair of Crocs, something like that. At the end of the day, you can take your socks off, you can put your flip-flops on, feet will air out, feet will feel great at the end of the day getting out of these pair of boots. But if you try to wear those, some kind of a sandal or even a light running shoe, day after day, carrying a heavy load, you're gonna probably end up paying the price for it. The boot has two tie systems. The lower tie system, the fit of your boot across the top of your foot, and it holds the boot in place. So when you go to tie this bottom section, you make sure it's as snug as you can get without it being uncomfortable. And then you crisscross it right here at the bottom. Now that section is done. This section from here up is for your ankle. That gives you your ankle support. So as you come around and you lace your boot up, you don't want your boot to be too tight, but you want a nice, snug fit. Controls around your ankle. So if you start getting places that are rubbing your ankle, you can loosen this up a little bit if you need without compromising your boot slip whenever you go to put your boot on. It's very important that you put your foot in and you kick the heel down. You want your foot to be down in that heel box, right against the back of this boot. That is very important. Go ahead and tighten bottom section. Then your foot is going to stay in place, and then at that point there is when you take it and you start to lace up the top right here. Make sure the tongue is always in. A lot of people are probably switching from a heavier boot like this to a lightweight shoe because they probably didn't have their boot strapped on right to begin with. They probably end up getting some blisters. I also don't believe in the weight. If this boot right here weighs 2 extra pounds compared to this shoe, that doesn't bother me in the least bit. I look at that as coming down the training. If this boot is going to wear you out and you can't wear it, then you should have probably walked a little bit before you took this trek. Should have worked your leg muscles out a little bit more before you took this backpacking trip. It all comes down to fitness. If you're gonna take some challenging trips, do some fitness beforehand. So when you get out there, your training doesn't start on mile number 1. You're already trained up, ready to go. You throw that pack on, that pack is ready to go. It fits good. You don't want to get a pair of boots a week before you go on a trip. Get your boots in advance and wear them. Wear them outside, everywhere. Once your feet start getting sore, once they start getting too hot, take them off if you need to around the house, at work, put them back on, but make sure you keep wearing your boots. That does bring me up to a good point. A lot of people will say, bought a pair of boots and they kind of hurt my feet. That's because I haven't broke them in yet. No. Pair of boots should feel good when you slip your foot in and you lace it up. They should feel good right there in the store. As you put that pair of boots on and you walk around that store, if something is bothering you, do not buy that pair of boots. Do not let somebody say, oh, they'll break in, you just got to break them in. No. Pair of boots, like a boot like this Salomon, is already designed to hit the trail today. Ready to go. Put your foot in it, get your sock system, you are ready to go on down the trail. Now, I know I just said don't buy a pair of boots a week before you go because you want to make sure everything's going to be okay. But the day you go in to try these boots on, if something doesn't feel good, don't buy the boot. There are 1,000 different manufacturers out there and different kind of boots that you can choose from. Don't settle on a brand name. If the boot doesn't fit right, it just doesn't fit right. Try on another pair of boots. Fitting people for boots so they could go out and hike. So if somebody walked in and said, hey, I like that pair of Salomon right there. I want to try that out for a trail. First things I would do is I'd get the Salomon out, and if they were seriously wanting to get fit, first thing I would do is we'd break out a sock liner. Okay, this is the complete system. If you really want to have the right system, follow these simple guidelines right here. First of all, get you a pair of lightweight, super thin sock liners. Are usually made out of polyester. They could be made out of nylon. They can even be made out of merino wool that's super thin. These are your first layer of defense. A sock liner will wick moisture from your feet. If you take a piece of paper towel and you put it on a little bit of water, water will absorb up in the paper towel and then spread all across it. That's what a sock liner does. A sock liner will get the moisture away from your skin. It will also create a barrier for abrasion. If your boot does start to rub a little bit, say you decide to climb Mount St. Helens and you're going all the way up there, 8,000 feet or so, and it starts rubbing, that is going to help you out a lot. And they should have them in the store. Actually, go ahead and buy a pair of sock liners to make sure your boots are going to fit. Number 2, make sure you get a good pair of socks. Do not wear any kind of cotton whatsoever on your feet out on the trail. I don't care if it's summertime, wintertime, whenever it is. Cotton shouldn't even be in your clothing. Cotton is known as the death cloth in the outdoor world. Cotton, if it gets wet, will not dry, will make your skin feel cold and will stay clammy. You want material that even if it gets hot and sweaty, it's going to dry very fast. Get you a pair of merino wool socks. Now that sounds crazy, and a lot of people says, in the summertime, Mr. Lawrence? Yes, even in the summertime, all different thickness. It all depends on the weather you are going to hike in, how thick you want your socks to be. You have to set your boot that you're going to hike in to your sock liner and your smart wool socks, and now you are ready to fit your boot. You can't go in there with a thin pair of cotton socks, get the perfect boot fit, come home, get ready to go hiking on your trail. Put on some sock liners and put on your smart wool socks, and all of a sudden your boots are too tight. The whole system has to be bought right at the very beginning. Be careful on the try-on socks because they may have try-on socks there, but it may not be the sock you're going to want to buy. If you're going to go in and buy a good pair of boots, go ahead and make the investment in a good pair of socks. Can't go wrong. Went in into your boot fitter, you sat down, you purchased a good sock liner, and now you've picked up a good pair of merino wool socks. Got those on, now you are ready. If you're normally a size 10, you may actually be put into a boot 10 and a half, maybe even 11. And once you get this system all worked out, the boot fitting comes third. Now you've got your sock liners on, you have your good merino wool socks on. One of the first things I would do is I would get the boot down. If they were a size 10, I'd go back and I'd get a 10, 10 and a half, and 11. Bring all three boxes out. We're gonna start with a 10. Reach in and I would pull out the insole on the boot. Most boots, even the expensive boots, have junkiest insole. They are nothing. These insoles are absolutely nothing. Boot manufacturers put all their money in, especially your top boot manufacturer, put all their money in a good sole, put them in a good shank, the way everything's sewn together. They use Gore-Tex in it, so they've got so much money in this boot, and it's so competitive on pricing, where this Salomon might be $210 and yet a North Face might be $199. They may be losing business to that North boot because of that $11 difference. This is what you need right here. This is called a Superfeet. Superfeet insoles. This is the best over-the-counter orthotic that you can buy. Oh, it's at least a decade old, and it still is in excellent condition. And it has hundreds of miles of hiking on it already. But you can see the way it's built. It is strong, and it has an excellent heel box. This is where your heel lives. Remember we talked about punching it down? That's what you're punching your heel down into, that heel box right there. If they were serious about a pair of boots and they wanted the best fit possible, I would get rid of one of these right here, and I'd go get a Superfeet, install that inside the boot, and that's where the system would start. Now some people might say, yeah, Mr. Lawrence, you're just doing an add-on sale. Well, it is an add-on sale. These at the time were running somewhere around $30. It was an add-on sale, but once again, these are decades old that I have here. They're still in excellent shape, and they're the best fit system you can get. If they didn't want to spend the extra money, that's fine. I have no problem. I'll take the stock insert, put it right back in the boot. The next question that would come up, it's the climate's going to be colder. I want a nice insulated boot. You don't really need an insulated boot unless you got a hobby like hunting. If you're going to go out and you're going to hunt and you're going to walk all the way back to your tree stand, you're going to climb up in your tree and then you're just going to sit for hours and hours and hours, you probably need an insulated boot. But if you're going to go out and you're going to backpack and you're going to hike, you really don't need an insulated boot because your insulation comes from your socks. This is your insulation right here. Your boot should be strong, it should be tough, it should have Gore-Tex or fabric like Gore-Tex where it's going to be 100% waterproof. It's still going to be breathable. You want to make sure the fabric in it is breathable, waterproof and breathable. These socks right here, even though these aren't the thickest socks, these socks right here and this sock liner combination is going to be all the warmth that I'm going to need to backpack, to hike it. Plain and simple. Because when you start hiking, you're going to get warm right off the bat. Within that first mile or so, you're going to get warm. Worst mistake people can make is they get out of their car and they're going to do a 10-mile loop trail and they put all their gear on and they're nice and toasty warm and they hit the trail. You should be chilly when you start that trail because if it's cooler weather, like we're talking about 35 degrees, and you start out feeling nice and cozy and warm, within a mile or so, you're going to start to sweat. Guarantee you. But that's a whole nother subject and we can talk about that sometime if you would like to. If you'd subscribe to the channel, please, I would really appreciate it. This video I have here is not sponsored by anybody. These are just my own products. As you can probably see, they've been worn pretty good, and it's a non-biased opinion. This is just how I feel that I can help you, the beginner, the person that wants to really get out there and hit the trail and start out, invest your money, invest your pennies wisely. This is what you need to be doing right here. Everything should feel good. Now, if you've never worn a good pair of boots like this, it's going to literally feel like your feet have armor on. I mean, it's going to feel a little clunky possibly if you've never worn a big pair of boots before. But remember, it's a tool. This is your tool to make sure you can hike 15 miles up Mount St. Helens, turn around and come back at the end of the day, kick them off, put your flip-flops on, and go get you a beautiful microbrew right down the street. Your feet are going to feel wonderful. Your toes cannot touch the front of that boot. Actually, a little elevated platform. Once you got the boot on, you walked around, everything was feeling good. Then at that point right there, you would walk up to the top, and you would start to come down, and you'd stop. Right on the incline, you'd stop. And the first thing I'd ask you is, can you feel your toes touching the front of that boot? The correct answer is no. If your toes have slipped forward, we either need to relace them, but if relacing them doesn't help, when you come down that slope, you feel your toes against the top, we're going to a half a size bigger. If you've never hiked a steep decline before with a pair of boots that don't fit right, I can tell you what would happen. Probably by the next day, your toenails could be black. That's how bad it can be as you start coming down if your foot is slipping up on the front. Pair of boots are crucial for the right fit. That's why I kind of have a problem with the trail runners and the trail hike. They're lightweight, you can move, you can scramble pretty fast, but are they protecting your feet like they should? What's protecting your ankle back and forth? I notice a lot of people, when I watch their YouTube videos, are saying, oh, my ankle's fine, I have no problem, I've hiked 100 miles on it. Well, they're lucky because they haven't hit that rock. That eagle hasn't flew over the top of their head where they looked up about the same time that rock was hidden underneath those leaves and they turned. This boot right here, you could still sprain your ankle, but I have done that before, and first thing I think is, oh, thank you for the good pair of boots, because I know it would have hurt my ankle the way that popped like that. Very important to have the right tool on. Okay, well, I could go on for hours about boot fitting, the proper fit. Socks are so important, and do you want the best there is out? And I don't necessarily mean the most expensive, because the most expensive is not necessarily the best. I can think of a couple boot companies right now that are very expensive, but they're stylish. They're made for style. You stay with the Salomon, you stay with the Merrell. There are a lot of different companies out there that do a really good job. Danner is a German-made boot. Voss, look at a pair of Voss. That's another thing. If you're going to go look for a pair of boots, let's say you're going to go over to your local REI store and shop for a pair of boots. They have a lot of different boots. Try them on. Take the time. Schedule 2 hours to go in there and try it. Don't go in there expecting to buy a pair of boots in 10 or 15 minutes. You can do that. That's how fast you can go pick a pair up, give it to the cash register, and get back out to your car. But if you want a good pair of boots, make sure you try on others and then do the process of elimination. I literally, at the store I used to run, we'd probably have at least 8 to 10 different kind of pair of boots that were top of the line. And I personally wouldn't mind if that customer wanted to try on every one. If you get a salesman that are like starting to buff and roll his eyes because you want to try this or that on, well, maybe you're at the wrong store. Or maybe just call the manager and say, hey, can you get me somebody over here that understands that I'm about ready to do a 4-day trek up and down the North Country, and I want to make sure my feet are in excellent condition and I'm getting the best boot I possibly can. And if your employee doesn't have time to help me, that's okay, but I'd like for somebody that could find the time, because I'm serious about this. I'm going to drop some major dollars in your store. I want to make sure I get the right system. I was always serious about it, and I always took the time to understand what the beginner needed. Thank you for coming to the channel. That's LAF Space Film Fest. That's capital LAF Space Film Fest. Hit that like button if this is going to help you. Share it with whoever you want to share it with. If you got some people that are going to go with you, share the video with them. Let them watch it. Just make sure you do it in enough time that everybody can get their boots and everybody can go out and hike around, wear them outside, cut grass in them, do whatever you want to do. Don't worry about them getting dirty. Who cares? They're going to get dirty out on the trail anyways. What you want to do is you want to make sure that system works great. Subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to come up with more videos. I'll probably come up with one on the backpacks, clothing. There's so many different areas that if you really want to feel comfortable, it's worth paying attention to. For all you pros out there that bust out 1,000 miles a year, I know you're looking at me and going, man, I know all that stuff, Mr. Lawrence. Well, good for you. Pass it on if you do. Pass it on to the beginners, because I always have the beginners in mind. No matter what videos I put out, I'm always thinking of the person that has never done this but wants to do it. Young, old, doesn't matter. They want to get out there in the great outdoors. And this is how you learn. Now That's how I learned back a long time ago, is I listened to people that knew, took their advice, and it all worked out good. Buy good equipment, they'll last a long time. This pair of boots right here personally has climbed Mount St. Helens, and they work so nice. That's a rough walk up there. If you haven't done it before, highly recommend it. A lot of people won't do it anymore because the top blew off of it, but I tell you what, when you get up to that top, when you get up to that rim, and all of a sudden it opens up to the north, and you see what Mother Nature is capable of doing, wow. It's just blown out. The whole side of the mountain is just blown away. So it's like you get the experience of mountain climbing when you get up there, but then you get environmental education of a lifetime, just seeing what can happen if something gives way like that. Power of Mother Nature. Well, thank you for coming to the channel, and you have a good day.